What's up, guys? There's an old woman in the middle of the road. That's a good start to the video. So today, it's a lovely Saturday, so I thought I'd take a drive so you can see everything that I can see. You can see an Astra VXR Nürburgring edition, which you wouldn't have seen if the camera was facing me. Now, what I wanted to talk to you all about today, and what I've been asked in the comments on a lot of videos, is budget. You know, what would you buy on a certain budget? Now, today I'm going to sort of go through what I think personally you can buy that's exciting for around £2,000. I think £2,000 is a good price considering the amount of cars you can buy these days for that price. You know, I think price isn't really everything. I think you can get a lot for that money, especially on the second-hand car market. You know, you can buy cars that, you know, are really, really unbelievable for under or around £2,000. So first off, I wanted to go through a couple of cars that I think performance-wise are awesome for the money. They really, really are. For £2,000, you could, you know, probably buy most of these with relatively good mileage, and you know, depending on your age and depending on your insurance, I think these cars are probably the ones to go for if you want something, you know, fast and something that's, you know, a good laugh. She's not quick. So £2,000, what can you get yourself for £2,000? Well, I think if you like, you know, your VWs and your Audis and your VAGs, your 1.8 turbos, I think a Mark IV Golf is a fantastic, you know, car for that sort of thing. They're cheap to modify. I think, you know, they seem to drive really nicely depending on, you know, age and, you know, if they've been seriously molested or not. And there's enough of them out there. I think you can really pick one up sub £2,000 with really, really good mileage on it. You can buy one that's already modified for that money easily, in my opinion. I think they're a good car, and I think they're a good base car if you want something that's turboed but you don't want to spend silly money on stuff, because they're so cheap to modify. They're so cheap to sort of, you know, get into the modifying game, and everybody and their cousin will have some part that they have in their shed for it. I think they're really universal with the, you know, the 1.8 turbo engine. So many other cars share that engine that you can get parts, you can get intercoolers, you know, dump valves very, very easily for them. I think insurance wise, I've never owned one, but I've never heard any horror stories, in my opinion. I've never heard someone saying, oh, my Golf GTI is, you know, costs the earth to insure. So I don't feel that they're really that bad. I'll close the sun visor, but the sun's over there, so it doesn't really actually do anything. Although I am wearing a hat and it is backwards. To have a backwards hat on is just a fashion statement, isn't it? It doesn't actually do bugger all. So what else can you buy for £2,000? Well, you could buy the car right in front of us now, an MX-5. I wouldn't drive it at 35 miles an hour on a 60 mile an hour lovely road like this with the sun out. I think that car, I know that's a Mark II, but I think that car alone is a good car, and I think that, you know, the chassis and everything, if you fancy something that's a two-seater and you want something that's, you know, easy again to modify, in my opinion, there's parts everywhere for them. I think they're relatively cheap to insure depending on age and depending on where you live and stuff like that, and they're good fun. You know, you can't really go wrong with them, in my opinion. It's just whether you don't want the back seats. If you don't want back seats and you like, you know, open top living with your roof down in the summer, then I think that's the car to go for. I don't, again, ever hear any horror stories about them insurance wise, and, you know, I think rust is probably the main thing on those, but I mean, other than that, from my previous encounters with them, from driving them on reviews and speaking to owners of them, there's nothing really else to report back on stuff like that. So again, that's another lovely car that's, you know, it's a lot of fun, it's nimble on its feet, you can put the roof down, it's still got a boot. They're bloody cheap to buy. Even the Mark IIs are silly cheap these days. So yeah, I think that's another car that's good sub £2,000 money. Next, I'd say a Subaru Impreza, you know, sort of a classic shape, good one, seem to be kicking around for under £2,000 at the moment. And again, that's a good car. It's 4-door, 5 seats. You can get everything in it, get everything in the boot, and it's still, you know, it's an Impreza. It's still the 4-wheel drive, you know, turboed rally car for the road. So I think something like that would be awesome as well. I definitely think with those though that insurance can bite you in the arse, and not that I've ever bought one or, you know, tried to insure one or anything, but I've heard from, you know, certain individuals that have owned them that the insurance can bite you if they want to. It all, obviously, again, all depends on age, location and all that sort of stuff, but I think again, under £2,000, I think that's a good car to buy, and it does everything. It's got the doors, it's got the seats, it's got, you know, the power. You can, you know, I do see parts come up for them all the time, so they must be relatively cheap to modify as well. Whether they're good on petrol, I don't know. I've never driven one, and I don't really know how good the boxer engines are on fuel. I'm assuming they're relatively, you know, what you would expect from a 2-litre turboed car. But again, I can't really go through with that because I've never, you know, owned one or sort of been through the ownership experience on one of those. As of yet, I am still waiting to jump in a couple of Subaru Imprezas. So if you fancy something a little bit French, I think a Clio 172 or a 182 are a very good buy. I've driven both 172s and 182s in the past, but not, you know, not on video or not on a review. I do feel that they were really, really good cars, but, you know, the build quality I don't think's there in those. And I think, you know, if you like your French cars, then you'll sort of put up with it, but if you jumped out of a German car and into a French car, you'd really, really feel that. And that's what I used to feel when I had a Mark V Golf. I'd jump into a Clio and I'd think, wow, this is really built not very well in comparison. And obviously that's so much lighter and so much more of a fun car than a Golf, don't get me wrong. But if you're looking for something that's, you know, a little bit better built, then maybe the Clio isn't the best option. But I do think value for money, they're fantastic at the moment. I see them kicking around for absolutely dirt cheap at the moment, and it's a good laugh. It's a good car. It's, you know, it's a good laugh through the corners. It's got more than enough power to, you know, shoot you around any sort of country road, B road you fancy. Insurance wise, I think if you're you know, 17, 18, 19, you're looking to get one, I think they're going to bite you in the arse, because when I was a bit younger and people used to buy them, they would always complain about how much they were paying for insurance. So whether that's right these days, it probably is, because insurance only goes up, in my opinion, when you get when the time goes on. But people, like, you know, come into the car world, the insurance price seems to rocket through the roof. But I mean, that's one of those cars that I've, you know, always seen people have. I've never actually experienced properly myself, but other than driving one, but I've never, again, heard any horror stories. But it's a French car, so, you know, you've got to expect that, I suppose. You got to remember it's French in the back of your head every time you drive it. So going back to the 1.8 turbo side, I think Seat Ibiza Cupras are quite good. For the money, I think they're a good little car. Again, with the 1.8 turbo engine, you can, you know, get a lot out of them for next to no money. The only thing with those is I've actually owned one, and if you do have a bad back like me, because I'm obviously an old man, you will experience back pain in those. I just don't think the seats were very good. They just did not seem as good as the Golf ones of the same sort of car. It just did not seem as good as that should be. I remember driving it on a long trip on the motorway, and it just did my back in so bad. Also, another thing about the Ibizas, I think the centre console is quite good. You know, it's got a screen on it for, you know, your heating and all that sort of business, but I don't think you can put an aftermarket head unit in that space, or I didn't know you could when I had mine. In my one, someone had jimmied and cut some wires and put one down, sort of down here, which looked a bit odd, and I didn't really like it. Not sure you can actually get a fascia that changes all that. You probably can, but I never really looked into it, because, to be honest, I didn't like the car enough to look into doing any more than just whacking the boost up and seeing how fast it could go at the time. But I mean, that's one of those things. I think if I was more into the car, I would have been able to sort the radio out, and I would have had a bit more fun in it. But again, it's just, I just felt so uncomfortable in it all the time. I don't know what it is. It just felt like the seats didn't have enough going on for you to warrant, you know, enjoying the car, if you had sort of back pain, or you wanted a comfier little car, it's just not that car, unfortunately. Still a cool car though, and I think for the money it's something a little bit different, because a lot of people do go for the Golfs over the Ibizas, I think. So you don't see as many Ibizas these days as you used to. But again, it's all down to, you know, insurance and stuff, and whether you can actually afford to insure one. And last off, the Fiesta St. I think they're relatively cheap these days. You can buy one for, you know, around £2,000 with good mileage on it, and that's a good little car. It's relatively new, so you can sort of get away with, you know, thinking you've got a newer car for the money, which is fantastic. For £2,000, if you can get an 05 plate Fiesta, that's really, really good in my opinion. If you're not into your Fords, you won't find it that exhilarating, I don't think. The 2 litre 150 brake horsepower engine is good, but some of its rivals do outpace it, in my opinion, very, very easily. But if you're into your Fords, you will always go to, you know, STs and RSs over any other car. So I think the Ford guys will get a Ford regardless of how good it is. They'll just have it because it's, you know, the Ford to have, the ST to have, the RS to have. So I think that's mainly who buy those, in my opinion. But again, the one I've tested, I was really, really impressed with, and it went well for what it was. I did enjoy it, and that was my first Fiesta I'd driven, and I was impressed by how much stuff it had on it as a standard car. And the price, I don't think you can beat the price on that for a, you know, an 05, 06 plate car, ST, so a sporty version of a car. You can get them for cheap. So I think if you want something a little bit newer and you like your Fords, I think that would be the best way to go if you had £2,000. So guys, I hope you like this little sort of vlog about what cars you would buy under £2,000. If you have any other suggestions of you know, what you can buy for under £2,000, or you have any sort of, you know, horror stories about any of the cars that I've said about, insurance costs, you know, I think insurance costs is a big thing that I'll go over in another video in a couple of weeks. I'd like to put out there, you know, horror stories of insurance and how much people are paying for certain cars. I've always found it relatively cheap to insure all of the cars that I've always wanted, so that's quite nice. But I do hear some bloody horror stories, I tell you, depending on obviously where you live and how much, you know, driving experience you've got. So let me know in the comments what you think, what cars you would, you know, buy for £2,000, and any I've missed, any exciting sort of B-road bashing cars that you could sort of enjoy for under £2,000 or around £2,000. Also remember guys, 8 PM we're doing a new release of black and white t-shirts with my new logo on it, for the FYD streetwear sort of section of the brand. I love the cut and the finish of these t-shirts, they're absolutely fantastic. So if you want one, there will all be limited numbers as always. Get one as soon as you want one, because I have a feeling they're going to sell out relatively fast. And if you like what I do and you like, you know, the brand and you like the YouTube channel, I'd love the support. All the money goes back into the business to make it better for, you know, you guys as a customer, because I think that's the main thing. It's not going into Lamborghinis and Bugatti Veyrons and champagne on fucking yachts and all that shit. Power! So guys, I hope you like the video. Let me know in the comments what you think, price wise, insurance wise, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers!